She stopped in front of the horse no one wanted. When she raised the number paddle, everyone laughed, until the old handler fell to his knees and shouted who she really was. The morning light hadn't yet broken over the eastern ridge when Maya Rodriguez awoke. Her small cabin creaked with the whispers of dawn as she pulled herself from the threadbare blankets, careful not to disturb the silence that had become her only companion. 5:30, and already the weight of the day pressed upon her shoulders. She shuffled to the kitchen, really just a corner of the single room with a hot plate and a sink that worked when it felt like it. The cabin had belonged to her grandmother, Emma Clearwater, and like Maya, it seemed to exist in a state of perpetual endurance, not quite thriving, but refusing to give up. Maya's gaze drifted to the photograph propped against a chipped mug on the shelf. Her parents, Elena and Ramon, standing in front of a field of wheat, their smiles bright despite the obvious exhaustion in their eyes. 2 years gone, yet the pain remained as fresh as the day the sheriff had knocked on her door with news of the highway accident. "Buenos dias, Mama. Buenos dias, Papa," she whispered, the ritual as much a part of her morning as breathing. Her fingers brushed against the frame, remembering how her mother's hands had felt, strong yet gentle, calloused from years of working the land. Elena Rodriguez had been the daughter of Emma Clearwater, a Cherokee woman who had fallen in love with a Mexican field worker passing through Montana decades ago. Maya's childhood had been a patchwork of cultures, her mother singing Cherokee lullabies while braiding her hair, her father teaching her Spanish prayers before bed. But the most important lessons had come in the fields and stables where her parents worked. "Mija," her father had told her once, crouching beside a nervous foal while the Montana sunset painted everything gold. "Los animales saben quién eres de verdad. Not what you say, but what your heart guards." Maya closed her eyes, holding the memory close before reality intruded again. She had 20 minutes to wash, dress, and begin the 3-mile walk to Harrington Ranch if she wanted to keep her job. The clothes she pulled on were functional, jeans worn soft at the knees, a flannel shirt that had seen better days, work boots re-soled twice already. She twisted her long black hair into a practical braid and splashed cold water on her face. The mirror above the sink reflected a woman of 25 who often looked much older, her dark eyes carrying a wariness that youth shouldn't know. Outside, the Montana landscape sprawled in magnificent indifference. Liberty Creek was just a speck amid the vastness. A small town nestled between prairie and mountain where people like Maya existed on the periphery of society, essential for their labor but otherwise invisible. By the time she reached Harrington Ranch, the sun had crested the horizon, illuminating the stark contrast between worlds. The main house stood like a modern castle, all glass and timber and arrogant architecture, while the workers' facilities huddled at the edge of the property like apologetic afterthoughts. Maya slipped through the service entrance, head down as she passed the other ranch hands starting their day. There were nods of acknowledgement but little conversation. Everyone had their place here, and Maya's was at the bottom of the hierarchy, the Mexican girl who cleaned stalls and was grateful for the privilege. "Rodriguez, East Stables today," barked Mitch, the stable manager. "Jackson called in sick, so you'll have to pick up his section too. Same pay." He didn't wait for a response, already turning to assign tasks to workers deemed more valuable. Maya nodded anyway and grabbed a wheelbarrow. More work for the same pittance. The story of her life and her parents before her. But complaints were luxuries she couldn't afford, not when jobs were scarce and landlords unsympathetic. As she pushed the wheelbarrow toward the East Stables, commotion near the main training arena caught her attention. A crowd had gathered, not the usual ranch hands, but men in expensive boots who never touched manure. Clayton Harrington himself stood at the center, his commanding presence making everyone else seem smaller. Curiosity pulled Maya closer, though she maintained a careful distance. A massive horse trailer had arrived, reinforced with metal bars and plastered with bright warning signs. Danger and caution, aggressive animal. "Quite the beast, I'm told," Harrington was saying, whiskey tumbler in hand despite the early hour. The 60-year-old oil magnate had the confident posture of a man accustomed to owning everything he surveyed. Captured from the wild herds in Wyoming, pure Mustang with a fighting spirit that'll make for spectacular viewing in the rodeo circuit. His associates murmured appreciatively, already calculating potential profits. Maya watched as two handlers approached the trailer cautiously, exchanging nervous glances before unlatching the door. What emerged made her breath catch. The Mustang was magnificent. Coal black with a powerful build, muscles rippling beneath a coat that should have gleamed but was instead dulled by neglect. His head was held high, nostrils flaring as he assessed his new prison. But it was his eyes that captured Maya. Dark, intelligent, and filled with a fury born of betrayal. Then she saw the marks. Even from a distance, the scarring on the horse's back was unmistakable. The telltale pattern of whiplashes, some still healing. Maya's stomach tightened. She'd seen those marks before, on horses pushed too hard by impatient trainers, on animals whose spirits were systematically broken for human convenience. "This will make us a fortune when he's properly broken," Harrington continued, oblivious to or uncaring about the horse's suffering. The seller called him Thunder Spirit, said he has the temperament of a storm, perfect for the big shows. The Mustang was being forced into a reinforced holding pen, his resistance met with harsh yanks on the lead rope. As he reared up, powerful and terrified, the handlers scrambled back. "Get Luke Spencer on the phone," Harrington ordered his assistant. "Tell him I need his best work on this one. I want this horse saddle ready within 3 weeks. The Colorado Rodeo deadline is coming up." Maya knew Luke Spencer by reputation, a horsebreaker who specialized in crushing animal resistance in record time. His methods were as effective as they were cruel, and his services commanded premium rates from impatient owners. She should have continued to the stables, should have focused on the work that kept her employed. But something in the Mustang's desperate resistance held her in place, a recognition that ran deeper than conscious thought. For the next 3 weeks, Maya found reasons to work near the special arena where Spencer attempted to break Thunder Spirit. Each session was more brutal than the last, the renowned trainer becoming increasingly frustrated as the Mustang refused to submit. "Never seen one this stubborn," Spencer muttered to his assistant after a particularly violent session that left both man and horse dripping with sweat. "Might have to use the more persuasive tools tomorrow." Maya knew what that meant. Harsher bits, tighter restraints, perhaps even electric prods. The knot in her stomach tightened. The next day, she heard the scream before she saw what happened. A human scream, not equine. Dropping her rake, she ran toward the commotion to find Spencer on the ground, clutching his side, while Thunder Spirit paced the far end of the arena, eyes wild with defensive rage. "That devil broke 4 of my ribs," Spencer was shouting as medics rushed in. "And my legs fractured for sure." He wasn't the first. Over the previous weeks, 2 other trainers had suffered injuries attempting to subdue Thunder Spirit. But Spencer had been Harrington's ace, his last resort. From her hidden vantage point, Maya watched as Harrington paced furiously, phone pressed to his ear. "I don't care what it costs. I want that animal evaluated by the top veterinarian," he was saying. "If he can't be trained, I need to know my options." 3 days later, Maya overheard the verdict as she mucked stalls near the main office. "That demon has no salvation," Spencer declared from his hospital bed via speakerphone. "It's better to send him to slaughter before he kills someone. I've never recommended this before, but that horse is too dangerous to be around humans." Harrington's face had flushed with anger. Not concern for the injured men, but fury at the financial loss. "Put him in the back stable," he ordered his manager. "Isolated. No one goes in there except to give food and water until I can arrange for the slaughterhouse pickup." That evening, after most workers had left, Maya found herself assigned to bring hay and water to the isolated stable. The warning signs plastered on the door made her pause. "Extreme danger. Do not enter." Through the small observation window, she could see Thunder Spirit pacing his stall, his magnificent body tense with fear and rage. Fresh welts crossed his back, testament to Spencer's persuasive tools. She should have left the water bucket outside the door as instructed. Instead, after checking that no one was watching, Maya slipped inside. The Mustang immediately pressed against the far wall of his stall, ears pinned flat, eyes rolling with distrust. Maya made no move toward him. Instead, she sat on an overturned bucket near the door, maintaining a respectful distance. "I know what they did to you," she said softly, first in Spanish, then English, then humming a few notes of a Cherokee melody her grandmother had taught her mother, who had passed it to her. The horse's ears flicked forward briefly, registering the unexpected sounds. Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out a worn paperback, a collection of poems by Joy Harjo that she'd borrowed from the town library. She opened to a dog-eared page and began to read aloud, her voice soft but clear in the quiet stable. "I am not afraid of the dark," she read. "I trust the mystery. I have faith in the unknown, for there's more of it than I can ever know." She read for nearly an hour, pretending that the Mustang wasn't there, that she was simply enjoying a moment of solitude. Outside, rain began to fall, drumming against the metal roof. Thunder Spirit's agitated movement gradually slowed. By the third poem, he had stopped pacing, though he remained at the far side of the stall, watching her with wary intensity. When Maya finally closed the book, their eyes met properly for the first time. In that moment, something passed between them, a recognition, a silent acknowledgement between two beings who understood what it meant to be alone in a world that saw them as expendable. She stood slowly, careful not to make sudden movements. From her pocket, she took an apple she'd saved from her lunch, cut it in half with her small pocket knife, and placed one piece near the stall door. "I won't force you to do anything," she promised quietly. "The world has done that too much already." With that, she slipped out, locking the stable door behind her as if she'd simply completed her assigned task. The next morning, Maya returned early, before the other workers arrived. Her heart pounded as she peered through the observation window, wondering if she'd imagined the connection. The half-apple was gone, and when Thunder Spirit turned to look at her, his eyes still held wariness and distrust, but the murderous rage had dimmed. For anyone else, this small change would have gone unnoticed. But for Maya, it meant everything, the beginning of a trust that no one believed possible. Maya's visits to Thunder Spirit became a ritual, as necessary to her as breathing. After her long days of mucking stalls and hauling hay, when the ranch hands had departed and only the night security made occasional rounds, she would slip back to the isolated stable like a shadow moving through moonlight. The second night, she brought her father's old guitar. It was a simple instrument, the wood worn smooth from years of Ramon's calloused fingers, coaxing melodies from its strings after long days in the fields. Maya settled on her overturned bucket, careful to maintain the same distance from Thunder Spirit's stall as before. The Mustang's ears pricked forward at her entrance, his powerful body tense but not panicked. He watched her from the far corner, nostrils flaring slightly as he caught her scent. "Just me again," Maya said softly, placing the half-apple in the same spot as before. No tricks, no demands. She began with poetry again, reading Pablo Neruda's verses in Spanish first, then translating to English. The rhythm of the words filled the stable, competing with the soft sounds of horses breathing and the distant call of a night bird. After 20 minutes, she set the book aside and lifted the guitar to her lap. Her fingers found the opening notes of an old lullaby, one her mother had sung to her as a child. Elena had learned it from Emma Clearwater, who had learned it from her Cherokee mother before her. The melody was haunting, part Spanish cadence, part indigenous harmony, creating something that belonged to no single tradition, but spoke to something more universal. "My mother said this song was for calming spirits that couldn't rest," Maya explained, though she wasn't sure why she felt compelled to share this with a horse who couldn't understand her words. "When I couldn't sleep because of thunderstorms, she would sing this and tell me that even the lightning needed a lullaby sometimes." Thunder Spirit's ears remained fixed on her, his breathing slowing noticeably as the gentle notes filled the space between them. When Maya finished the song, she didn't leave immediately as she had the night before. Instead, she set the guitar aside and simply sat in silence, allowing her presence to become as natural as the hay beneath their feet. Hours passed this way. Occasionally, Maya would speak softly about inconsequential things, the changing leaves on the cottonwoods by the creek, the way the evening star had appeared particularly bright that night, never looking directly at Thunder Spirit, never expecting a response. As she finally rose to leave, she noticed the Mustang had moved several feet closer to her side of the stall. This pattern continued for a week. Each night, Maya would arrive with her poetry books and guitar, sometimes adding small offerings, a fresh apple, a handful of sweet carrots. Each night, Thunder Spirit would be a little closer to her side of the stall when she departed. On the 8th night, as Maya gathered her things to leave, she heard the crunch of boots on gravel outside the stable door. Panic flashed through her. Being caught after hours with the killer horse would mean immediate termination. She quickly extinguished her small lantern and pressed herself against the wall beside Thunder Spirit's stall, praying the darkness would conceal her. The stable door creaked open, and a flashlight beam cut through the darkness. Maya held her breath, acutely aware of Thunder Spirit's sudden alertness beside her. To her surprise, the Mustang remained silent, though his breathing had quickened. "I know you're in here," came a gravelly voice. "Might as well show yourself." Maya recognized the voice. Joseph Running Bear, one of the oldest workers on the ranch. A Lakota man in his 70s, Joseph mainly handled the gentle training horses now, too valuable for his knowledge to be fired, but too old for the more demanding tasks. Slowly, Maya stepped forward into the flashlight beam. "I'm sorry, Mr. Running Bear. I wasn't doing anything wrong, I promise." Joseph lowered his flashlight, revealing a weathered face creased with both age and wisdom. His silver hair was pulled back in a traditional braid that reached the middle of his back. He studied Maya for a long moment, then shifted his gaze to Thunder Spirit, who stood watching them both with unusual calmness. "Interesting," Joseph said finally. "This morning it took 3 men to deliver his hay without getting kicked, yet here he stands, calm as a summer lake with you a few feet away." Maya remained silent, uncertain whether Joseph was preparing to report her. "How long have you been coming here at night?" he asked. "A little over a week," she admitted. Joseph nodded thoughtfully. "And what exactly are you doing with him?" "Nothing really, I just sit with him, read sometimes, play music." The old man's eyes narrowed. "Music?" "Songs my mother taught me, old Cherokee lullabies mostly." Something changed in Joseph's expression, a flicker of recognition, perhaps even respect. He stepped closer to the stall, his movement deliberate and slow. Thunder Spirit shifted nervously, but didn't retreat to the far wall as he typically did with others. "My grandmother used to say that horses like this one have ancient memory," Joseph said quietly, his eyes never leaving the Mustang. "They carry the trauma, not just of what they've lived through, but of generations. You can't speak only to the body. You must speak to the spirit." He turned to Maya, studying her face with new interest. "Your mother was Cherokee?" "Her mother was Emma Clearwater. My mother was half Cherokee, half Mexican." Joseph's eyebrows rose slightly. "Clearwater? From the Wind River people?" Maya nodded, surprised by his recognition of the name. "Interesting," he repeated, the word carrying more weight than before. "Tomorrow night, come find me at my cabin before you come here. There are things you should know about communicating with a spirit horse." With that cryptic statement, Joseph turned to leave. At the door, he paused. "I won't mention your visits to Harrington or the managers, but be careful. Not everyone would understand what you're doing here." The following evening, Maya stopped at Joseph's small cabin on the edge of the ranch property. Inside, the space was spare but deeply personal. Walls adorned with traditional Lakota artwork, shelves holding sacred objects whose significance Maya could only guess at. Joseph sat her at his small table and placed a steaming mug of herbal tea before her. "First, you must understand that what you're doing isn't new," he began. "It's very old. Before white men brought their breaking methods, our people spoke with horses differently." For the next hour, Joseph shared traditional techniques for reading horse body language, not the simplified versions found in modern training manuals, but subtle cues that most people missed entirely. When his left ear turns backward while the right points forward, he's remembering something painful, Joseph explained. When his breathing changes from 4 seconds to 2, he's preparing to defend himself. You must learn to read these signs like a language. He taught her specific humming patterns that mimicked a mare's soft nickering to a frightened foal. Horses are prey animals, he explained. They live in constant awareness of danger. Your job isn't to stop their fear, it's to become something they don't need to fear. Armed with this new knowledge, Maya's evening visits took on greater purpose. She began to notice patterns in Thunder Spirit's responses, how certain poems seemed to calm him more than others, how specific notes on her guitar would cause his ears to flick in recognition. 2 weeks into their nighttime sessions, a powerful storm swept through Liberty Creek. Thunder crashed directly overhead as Maya sat cross-legged on the stable floor, her back against the wall of Thunder Spirit's stall. The Mustang was visibly agitated, pacing nervously as lightning illuminated the stable in stark flashes. "It's okay," Maya soothed, though her own heart jumped with each thunderclap. She began singing one of her mother's lullabies, her voice competing with the storm's fury. As a particularly violent crack of thunder shook the building, Thunder Spirit reared in panic, hooves striking the wooden walls of his stall. Without thinking, Maya rose and moved closer to the stall door than she'd ever dared before. "You're safe," she called to him, continuing the melody between words. "No one will hurt you here." For hours, she sang through the storm, her throat growing raw as the night progressed. Gradually, the Mustang's panic subsided. By the time the storm moved eastward, leaving only distant rumbles in its wake, Thunder Spirit stood near the stall door, his breathing synced with the rhythm of Maya's singing. Exhausted, she slumped against the wall beside his stall, closing her eyes for just a moment. When she opened them again, she found the Mustang's face just inches from hers through the stall bars, studying her with an intensity that held no aggression, only curiosity. Slowly, with movements as gentle as morning mist, Maya extended her hand, palm up, toward the space between them. She didn't reach through the bars, didn't invade his space, simply offered a possibility. Thunder Spirit's nostrils flared as he caught her scent. For several heartbeats, neither moved. Then, with deliberate caution, the Mustang extended his muzzle toward her hand. The touch, when it came, was electric. Warm breath first, then the softest brush of velvet muzzle against her palm. Tears sprang to Maya's eyes, not at the contact itself, but at the trust it represented. After all this magnificent creature had suffered at human hands, he was willing to try again. The moment was brief. Thunder Spirit pulled back after just a few seconds, retreating to a comfortable distance. But something fundamental had shifted between them. Their progress over the following days wasn't linear. Some nights, Thunder Spirit would allow the brief contact again. Other nights, he kept his distance, as if reconsidering the wisdom of trusting a human. Maya never forced the issue, never showed disappointment when he retreated. "He's testing you," Joseph explained when Maya described the pattern. "Not just whether you're safe, but whether you respect his right to choose." A week after the storm, another violent weather system moved through the region. This time, Thunder Spirit's panic was less pronounced, though he still paced nervously at the first distant rumbles. Maya took up her usual position, singing softly as the storm approached. As the first lightning flashed, she noticed Frank Morris, one of the night security guards and a veteran who'd served in Afghanistan, peering through the stable window. Her heart sank. Discovery meant the end of her time with Thunder Spirit, perhaps even the end of her job. The door opened slowly, and Frank stepped inside, rain dripping from his hat brim. Maya fell silent, waiting for the reprimand, the order to leave immediately. Instead, Frank simply stood watching as Thunder Spirit responded to her presence, notably calmer than he should have been during a thunderstorm. "How long has this been going on?" he asked finally, his voice neutral. "A few weeks," Maya admitted. Frank nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving the Mustang. "He should be going crazy right now. Storms trigger the hell out of horses with his background." "I just sit with him," Maya explained cautiously. "Sing sometimes." Frank was silent for a long moment. My service dog does the same for me, he said finally. During fireworks, thunderstorms. Keeps me grounded when the PTSD kicks in. Another flash of lightning illuminated the stable, followed immediately by a deafening crack as a transformer blew nearby. The lights flickered and died, plunging the stable into darkness save for the emergency lights. Thunder Spirit startled violently, but instead of retreating to the far corner, he moved closer to Maya, positioning himself between her and the perceived threat. It happened so quickly that both Maya and Frank froze in astonishment. "Well, I'll be damned," Frank whispered. "He's protecting you." From the shadows near the door came another voice. Joseph had arrived unnoticed during their conversation. "It is as the ancient stories tell," the old Lakota man said quietly. "The protector and the protected, becoming one." "Well, I'll be damned," Frank whispered. "He's protecting you." From the shadows near the door came another voice. Joseph had arrived unnoticed during their conversation. "It is as the ancient stories tell," the old Lakota man said quietly. "The protector and the protected becoming one." Frank lowered his flashlight, studying Maya with newfound interest. The security guard's weathered face softened as he glanced between her and Thunder Spirit, who remained positioned protectively near her side of the stall. "That horse has the same look in his eyes that I had when I first came back from Afghanistan," Frank said, his voice barely audible above the diminishing storm. "When the doctors called it PTSD, I thought they were just giving a fancy name to being broken. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't let anyone touch me. Jumped at every sound." He moved closer, careful to maintain a respectful distance from the Mustang. Thunder Spirit's ears flattened momentarily, then relaxed as Frank stopped and lowered himself to sit cross-legged on the ground. "How'd you get past it?" Maya asked. Frank smiled faintly. "A horse, believe it or not. VA hospital had this equine therapy program. There was this old quarter horse named Sergeant. Somehow he knew. He just knew when I was about to have an episode. Would position himself between me and whatever was triggering me." He nodded toward Thunder Spirit, "Just like this fella did with you just now." Maya absorbed this information, seeing Thunder Spirit through new eyes. Not just an abused animal, but a being experiencing the equine equivalent of post-traumatic stress. A recognition that went beyond intellectual understanding to something deeper, more intuitive. "I'm not trying to break him," she explained. "I'm just listening to him." Frank's eyes crinkled at the corners. "That's what my therapist kept saying. We don't fix trauma, Frank. We listen to it until it feels safe enough to quiet down." Joseph moved forward, his moccasins silent on the stable floor. "The old ways taught us this. Modern horse training forgets that animals have spirits, memories, feelings. They try to dominate instead of communicate." The three fell silent as another distant rumble of thunder rolled across the valley. Thunder Spirit's ears twitched, but he remained calm, his dark eyes fixed on Maya. "Your secret's safe with me," Frank said finally, standing with a slight wince that spoke of old injuries. "I'll swap shifts with Daryl when I can. He always takes the East Patrol, which will keep him away from this side of the property." "Why would you do that for me?" Maya asked, genuinely puzzled by this unexpected alliance. Frank gestured toward Thunder Spirit. "Because that horse deserves a chance, and because I recognize healing when I see it happening." As the days stretched into the third week of Maya's clandestine visits, word began to circulate among the ranch hands. Whispers followed her as she moved through her daily tasks. "They say she sits in there reading poetry to that killer horse. Heard she sings to it like it's a baby. Crazy Mexican girl is gonna get herself killed." Maya kept her head down, ignoring the comments. What mattered was the steady progress with Thunder Spirit. Each night revealed new layers of communication between them. The way his right ear would twitch when she played certain chords on the guitar, how his breathing synchronized with hers during quiet moments, the subtle shift in his posture when she read particular poems. Joseph continued his impromptu lessons, teaching Maya to read the Mustang's body language with increasing precision. "See how he's standing with more weight on his left front leg? He's protecting his right shoulder. Old injury, probably from being roped too harshly. Using herbs from his personal garden, Joseph prepared poultices for Thunder Spirit's healing wounds. Maya applied them with gentle fingers, speaking softly in a mixture of Spanish and Cherokee as she worked. The Mustang would tense initially, then gradually relax under her ministrations. "You're doing what the veterinarians should have done weeks ago," Joseph observed, "but Harrington wouldn't pay for proper treatment for a horse he's planning to dispose of." One evening in late September, as golden light filtered through the stable windows, Maya sat inside Thunder Spirit's stall for the first time. The Mustang stood at a respectful distance, watching her with cautious acceptance. She didn't approach him, didn't try to touch him, simply occupied the space, reading aloud from a dog-eared copy of Leslie Marmon Silko's poems. Frank had arranged his shift to cover this side of the property, ensuring her privacy. Joseph had left a fresh bundle of healing herbs wrapped in cotton cloth. The stable was peaceful, the air fragrant with hay and the coming autumn. The stable door creaked open, startling both Maya and Thunder Spirit. The Mustang moved swiftly, placing himself between Maya and the door, a protective stance that had become instinctive over the past weeks. A teenage boy stood framed in the doorway, his expensive clothing marking him immediately as someone who didn't belong among the working staff. Derek Harrington, Clayton's 17-year-old son, stared wide-eyed at the scene before him. "Holy shit," he breathed, taking in the sight of Maya sitting calmly inside the stall with the notorious killer horse positioned protectively near her. Maya scrambled to her feet, heart pounding. Being caught by a fellow worker was one thing. Being discovered by the owner's son was potentially catastrophic. "Please," she began. "Please don't tell your father. I know I shouldn't be in here, but—" "How are you doing that?" Derek interrupted, his voice filled with genuine wonder rather than accusation. "No one can get near that horse. Luke Spencer is still in a back brace because of him." Thunder Spirit snorted, pawing the ground nervously at the mention of the brutal trainer's name. "I'm not doing anything to him," Maya explained carefully. "That's the whole point. I'm just being with him." Derek stepped further into the stable, causing Thunder Spirit to toss his head in warning. The boy immediately stopped, displaying more horse sense than Maya had expected from Harrington's son. "I've been watching from the security feeds," Derek admitted. "At first I thought the system was glitching because no one could possibly be in the stall with him. But then I saw you reading to him, playing guitar." He shook his head in amazement. "I've never seen anything like it." Maya's mind raced, calculating the danger of this situation. "Are you going to tell your father?" Derek's expression darkened. "My father only sees dollar signs when he looks at horses. He wanted me to learn Spencer's methods, said that's how real men handle animals." His voice dropped. "I hate those methods. Always have." He took a tentative step forward, then stopped when Thunder Spirit tensed. Could you show me how you do it? How you got him to trust you?" The question caught Maya completely off guard. This privileged boy, heir to Harrington's empire of exploitation, was asking her, the invisible Mexican cleaning girl, to teach him. "It's not something I can show you in an hour," she said carefully. "It's taken weeks, and it's different for every horse." "I have time," Derek insisted. "My dad thinks I'm at SAT prep classes 3 evenings a week. I could come here instead." His eyes were earnest, lacking the entitled arrogance she'd expected. "Please, I've loved horses my whole life, but no one will teach me how to work with them properly. They all use the same breaking techniques my father approves of." Maya glanced at Thunder Spirit, who had relaxed slightly but remained attentive. The Mustang's intelligence never ceased to amaze her. He seemed to be assessing the boy just as she was. "My mother loved horses too," Derek added quietly. "Before she died. She used to say they were more honest than most people." Something in his voice, a loneliness that echoed her own, made Maya's decision. "Tomorrow evening," she said. "Come at 7. But just to observe at first. No approaching him, no sudden movements." Derek's face lit up. "I'll be here, and I swear, I won't tell my father." Over the following week, an unlikely alliance formed. Derek proved to be a patient and attentive student, sitting quietly with Maya during her sessions with Thunder Spirit, absorbing Joseph's wisdom when the elder stopped by, and asking thoughtful questions that revealed a genuine desire to understand horses as thinking, feeling beings. "Dad would lose his mind if he knew I was hanging out with the staff," Derek commented one evening as he helped Maya prepare Thunder Spirit's feed with the special herbs Joseph had provided. Especially learning Indian mumbo-jumbo, as he calls it. Joseph, sorting through dried plants nearby, merely raised an eyebrow. The knowledge that built this continent over thousands of years is mumbo-jumbo, but the techniques that break animals and destroy the earth are progress. Interesting perspective. Frank joined their circle as well, sometimes bringing coffee for the humans and special treats for Thunder Spirit. The veteran had taken to spending his breaks in the stable, claiming the peaceful environment helped with his own lingering PTSD symptoms. One particularly significant evening, as autumn winds rattled the stable doors, Maya sang a Cherokee healing song while applying Joseph's medicine to a particularly stubborn scar on Thunder Spirit's flank. For the first time, the Mustang didn't just tolerate her touch, but leaned into it, his massive body relaxing completely as her fingers worked gently across his skin. Derek, watching from his usual spot on an overturned bucket, pulled out his phone. "What are you doing?" Maya asked sharply. "Sorry, this is amazing," Derek replied, lowering the device. "I've never seen him so peaceful. It's like he's in a trance." "No photos," she insisted. "This isn't a show." Derek nodded apologetically and put the phone away. But later, when Maya moved to the front of the stall and Thunder Spirit followed, resting his head over her shoulder in a gesture of complete trust, Derek couldn't resist. Silently, he raised his phone and captured the moment. The Mexican stable girl with her eyes closed, singing softly, while the supposedly untamable Mustang draped his head trustingly over her shoulder. The image was more powerful than he'd expected, a testament to something pure and true in a world that had always seemed artificial to him. Without thinking through the consequences, Derek posted it to his private social media account that night with the caption, "The real horse whisperer of Montana is right here on our ranch." By morning, the video had been shared thousands of times, reaching far beyond Derek's circle of wealthy friends to horse enthusiasts, animal rights activists, and eventually, Clayton Harrington himself. Derek's innocent social media post spread like wildfire through the digital landscape overnight. What had begun as a private share among his limited circle of friends quickly breached those boundaries, propelled by algorithms that recognized the raw emotional power of the image. A young Mexican woman singing softly to a massive black Mustang whose head rested trustingly on her shoulder. By sunrise, the video had accumulated over 50,000 views and thousands of shares. This is how horses should be treated, with respect and patience, not violence. Look at that connection. Who is this amazing horse whisperer? Someone show this to those abusive rodeo trainers. Maya woke to the sound of her ancient phone buzzing repeatedly on the wooden crate that served as her nightstand. Groggy and confused, she checked the screen to find 12 missed calls, most from Frank, 2 from Joseph, and 1 from a number she didn't recognize. Before she could return any of them, the phone buzzed again. Frank's gruff voice came through immediately when she answered. "Maya, you need to prepare yourself. The video's everywhere." "What video?" she asked, her stomach already tightening with dread. "Derek posted you with Thunder Spirit. It's gone viral. Harrington saw it this morning and he's on the warpath. You need to—" The call cut off abruptly as Maya's ancient phone finally surrendered to its dying battery. She scrambled to get dressed, mind racing with the implications. Everything she had built with Thunder Spirit, the delicate trust cultivated over weeks of patient effort, all exposed and endangered because of a teenager's thoughtless action. By the time she arrived at Harrington Ranch, she could sense the different atmosphere immediately. Workers avoided her eyes. Conversation ceased when she passed. She headed straight for the isolated stable, hoping to check on Thunder Spirit before confronting whatever storm awaited her. She never made it that far. "Rodriguez!" The bellow echoed across the yard. Clayton Harrington strode toward her, his face flushed crimson with rage, flanked by 2 security guards and Mitch, the stable manager. "Who the hell authorized you to enter that stall? To touch my property?" Maya stood her ground despite the fear coursing through her. "Mr. Harrington, I can explain." "Explain?" he snarled, thrusting his phone in her face. On the screen was Derek's video, paused on the moment Thunder Spirit's head rested on her shoulder. "Explain how you've been trespassing after hours, how you've been interfering with a valuable animal that professional trainers were working with." Around them, ranch hands and staff had stopped to watch the confrontation. Maya spotted Frank at the periphery, his face tense with concern, and Joseph standing silently near the stable entrance. "The professional trainers were abusing him," Maya said, surprising herself with her steady voice. "He was covered in wounds that weren't being treated. He was traumatized, not dangerous. How dare you critique methods you know nothing about?" Harrington's voice dropped to a dangerous tone. "That animal is worth $50,000 when properly trained for rodeo performances. 50,000, not whatever hippie commune nonsense you've been doing." The stable door opened and Derek emerged, his face pale but determined. "Dad, she's helping. The horse is actually responding to her. Look at the video. He's calm with her." Harrington rounded on his son. You're responsible for this PR nightmare? Half the internet is calling me an animal abuser now." "Maybe because of the way you treat them?" Derek challenged, stepping closer to Maya. "She's shown me a completely different approach, one that actually works without breaking the horse's spirit." "Shut up," Harrington shouted. "You know nothing about this business. Get back to the house, now." Derek hesitated, looking apologetically at Maya. "I'm sorry about posting the video. I didn't think—" "Now, Derek," his father commanded, and with a last regretful glance, the boy retreated toward the main house. Harrington turned back to Maya, his composure slightly recovered, but his anger no less intense. "You're fired, effective immediately. Collins, escort Ms. Rodriguez off the property." He gestured to one of the security guards. "And if I find that horse has a single scratch from your gentle methods, I'll sue you for damaging valuable property." "Please," Maya implored, panic rising in her chest. "Just give me a chance to explain what I've been doing. Thunder Spirit is responding because he's finally being treated with respect instead of fear." "Thunder Spirit?" Harrington scoffed. "It's a piece of livestock, not your spirit animal or whatever you people believe in, and it's my property to do with as I please." From within the stable came a sudden commotion, the unmistakable sound of Thunder Spirit kicking against his stall, his frantic whinnies carrying clearly to the group outside. The Mustang could sense Maya's distress, even from a distance. "See?" Harrington said triumphantly. "Still as wild and dangerous as ever. Get her out of here and call the slaughterhouse. I want that animal gone by the end of the week. We'll recover at least some of our investment that way." "No!" Maya cried, stepping forward only to be restrained by the security guard. "You can't. He's making progress. He just needs more time." But her protests fell on deaf ears. The guard gripped her arm firmly and began leading her toward the property gate. As they passed the stable, Thunder Spirit's distressed whinnies intensified, the powerful sound tearing at Maya's heart. The Mustang understood, in whatever way horses comprehend such things, that she was being taken away. "I'll come back for you," she whispered, though she had no idea how she could possibly fulfill such a promise. "Somehow, I'll come back." The security guard, not unkindly, allowed her to collect her few personal belongings from her locker before escorting her to the main gate. As they walked, he spoke quietly. "For what it's worth, I saw that video. Never seen anything like it with that horse. Spencer and the others couldn't get within 10 feet without it trying to kill them." Maya said nothing, throat too tight with unshed tears to respond. At the gate, Joseph was waiting, having somehow circled around to meet her. "This isn't over, young one," the elder said softly as the guard returned to the main property. "The spirits have connected you with that horse for a reason." Maya finally let the tears come, her composure crumbling now that Harrington was no longer watching. "What reason? So we can both end up destroyed? They're going to kill him, Joseph. They're sending him to slaughter." Joseph's weathered hand rested on her shoulder. "Come to my place tonight. We have work to do." Back in her cabin, Maya collapsed onto her narrow bed, overwhelmed by the sudden, devastating turn of events. Not only had she lost her job, the only steady income that kept her meager existence afloat, but Thunder Spirit would pay the ultimate price for her interference. The knowledge was unbearable. She clutched her father's guitar to her chest, remembering how Thunder Spirit had gradually come to recognize certain melodies, how his breathing would slow and synchronize with the rhythm of her playing. The trust they had built, so fragile and precious, was being shattered by human greed and impatience. Outside her window, the Montana landscape stretched indifferently, beautiful and cruel in its vastness. Maya had always felt small against this backdrop, but never as powerless as she did now. As afternoon faded into evening, a vehicle approached on the dirt road to her cabin. Not Joseph's ancient pickup, but Frank's more modern truck. The veteran's face was grim as she met him at the door. "I came because I understand what you're doing," he said without preamble. "When I came back from Afghanistan, nobody could touch me without me going into a panic. It was a horse therapy program that brought me back. That Mustang has the same eyes I had." Maya stepped back, allowing him to enter the sparse single room that constituted her home. "Harrington's really going to send him to slaughter, isn't he?" Frank nodded, removing his hat. "He's scheduled the transport for 3 days from now, Thursday morning." 3 days, Maya repeated numbly, sinking onto the edge of her bed. "Can't anyone stop him? Isn't there some law about animal cruelty?" "He owns the horse, Maya. Legally, he can do what he wants with it." Frank's jaw tightened. "And he's making everyone at the ranch sign non-disclosure agreements about the whole situation. He's worried about his reputation after that video went viral." Maya pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to think through the fog of despair. "There must be something we can do. I can't just let Thunder Spirit die." Frank sat beside her, the bed frame creaking under his weight. "I've been thinking about that. The transport will take him to Jefferson County auction first before the slaughterhouse. It's a legal formality. They have to offer livestock for sale before sending to slaughter. Usually just a rubber stamp, but what? But if someone showed up with a legitimate offer, legally Harrington would have to consider it before finalizing the slaughter arrangement." A tiny spark of hope flickered in Maya's chest. How much would it cost? Frank's expression told her everything. "More than either of us has, I'm afraid. Harrington will set a minimum bid that's prohibitive. He's vindictive that way." The spark dimmed but didn't extinguish entirely. "I have about $200 saved," Maya said. "It's not much, but it's something." "Maya," Frank said gently, "these auctions deal in thousands, not hundreds." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of reality settling heavily between them. "I need to do something," Maya finally said, her voice finding new resolve as she looked at the photograph of her parents. "I can't just sit here while they kill him." A sharp knock at the door interrupted them. Joseph stood on the porch, his expression uncharacteristically urgent. "I've discovered something," the elder said as he entered, nodding a greeting to Frank. "Something that changes everything." "What is it?" Maya asked. "Derek came to see me after you left. He showed me something he noticed about Thunder Spirit, a marking on his flank that's usually covered by his winter coat, a natural crescent moon pattern in the hair." "What about it?" Joseph's eyes gleamed with an intensity Maya hadn't seen before. "My people have stories, very old stories about horses bearing this mark. They're considered messengers between worlds, spirit horses. When I saw it, I almost couldn't believe it." Frank raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "Joseph, we need practical solutions here, not legends." "This is practical," Joseph insisted, "because I did some research into your grandmother, Maya. Emma Clearwater wasn't just any Cherokee woman. She was known among several tribes as one of the last guardians of the spirit horses from Wind River." Maya stared at him, trying to process this information. "What does that mean?" "It means," Joseph said, lowering his voice as if sharing a sacred truth, "that it's not coincidence this horse found you. The old stories are manifesting right before our eyes." "It means," Joseph said, lowering his voice as if sharing a sacred truth, that it's not coincidence this horse found you. The old stories are manifesting right before our eyes. Maya stared at Joseph, her mind struggling to process what he was saying. The elderly Lakota man's eyes held an intensity she'd never seen before. Not the gentle wisdom she'd come to associate with him, but something deeper, more urgent. "I don't understand," she said finally. "My grandmother was just a Cherokee woman who married a Mexican field worker. She never mentioned anything about spirit horses." Joseph moved toward her small wooden table where several faded photographs were displayed. He pointed to one showing Emma Clearwater standing beside a dappled gray horse. "Look closely at the horse's flank," he instructed. Maya leaned in, studying the grainy image. There, partially visible beneath Emma's hand, was a distinctive marking, a perfect crescent moon in white against the gray coat. "It's the same mark," she whispered. "The guardians of the spirit horses were a sacred lineage," Joseph explained, his voice taking on the cadence of a storyteller. "They existed across tribal boundaries: Cherokee, Lakota, Blackfoot, Crow. Women chosen to protect horses who carried messages between worlds. Your grandmother was one of the last recognized guardians before the old ways were further suppressed." Frank shifted uncomfortably, his practical nature clearly at odds with this mystical turn. "Joseph, I respect your traditions, but we need concrete solutions. The auction is in 3 days." "This is concrete," Joseph insisted. "The mark of the crescent moon is recognized by tribal elders across the nation. It changes the nature of what we're dealing with. This isn't just about saving one horse. It's about honoring sacred traditions protected by federal laws regarding indigenous religious practices." Maya moved to a small trunk in the corner of her cabin, one of the few possessions she had inherited from her grandmother. She'd rarely opened it, finding the memories too painful after her parents' death. Now she lifted the heavy lid and began carefully sorting through the contents. Hand-woven blankets, beaded jewelry, bundles of letters tied with faded ribbon. At the bottom, she found a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age. Opening it revealed handwritten entries in a mixture of English and Cherokee, alongside detailed drawings of horses, many bearing the crescent moon marking. "She never told me," Maya murmured, turning the fragile pages with careful fingers. "My mother mentioned stories, songs, but nothing about being guardians." "They were protecting you," Joseph said gently. "During your grandmother's time, people who maintained these traditions were often persecuted, their children taken away to boarding schools. Silence became protection." Maya found pages of songs transcribed in both Cherokee syllabary and phonetic English, with notes about their purpose: healing songs, calming songs, songs to guide a spirit horse home. The realization that her lullabies to Thunder Spirit had deeper roots than she'd understood sent a chill down her spine. Frank's phone buzzed, breaking the heavy silence that had fallen over the cabin. He checked the screen and stood abruptly. Derek just texted, "Harrington's moving up the timeline. Thunder Spirit goes to auction tomorrow, not Thursday." "Tomorrow?" Maya's heart plummeted. "Why?" "The video's causing too much backlash. Animal rights groups are starting to ask questions. He wants to complete the transaction before anyone can interfere." Joseph nodded grimly. "He fears what's happening. He senses it even if he doesn't understand it." Maya closed her grandmother's journal, a new determination settling over her. "How do these auctions work? What do we need to do?" Frank explained the process. Thunder Spirit would be transported to Jefferson County Livestock Auction, presented as a problem animal suitable only for slaughter. Bidders would have a brief opportunity to make offers before the horse would be loaded onto transport to the slaughterhouse. Harrington will set a minimum bid high enough to discourage casual buyers, but low enough that the slaughterhouse will still turn a profit, Frank concluded, and he'll have friends there to make sure nothing unexpected happens. Maya paced the small confines of her cabin, mind racing. "My $200 won't be nearly enough, will it?" Frank shook his head. "I've got about $800 I could add, but even together, we're looking at a fraction of what would be needed." Joseph, who had been quietly examining Emma's journal, looked up. "Money isn't our only resource. I need to make some calls to the tribal council. The mark of the moon changes everything. This becomes a matter of cultural preservation. As Joseph stepped outside to make his calls, Maya's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Opening it revealed a message from Derek. "I'm so sorry about everything. Dad's furious with me too. He's arranged for Judge Whitney to oversee the auction personally. They're friends. Be careful." "Great," Maya muttered, showing Frank the message. "The judge is in Harrington's pocket too." "Samuel Whitney," Frank nodded. "They play golf together. This just gets better and better." Outside, the Montana dusk was settling over the landscape, painting the distant mountains in purple shadow. Maya stood in her doorway, watching as online notifications continued to pour in about the viral video. People across the country were sharing it, commenting on the beautiful connection between woman and horse, condemning the reported plans to send Thunder Spirit to slaughter. "The petition already has over 100,000 signatures," Frank noted, looking at his phone. "People demanding Harrington spare the horse." "Will it make any difference?" Maya asked. "Legally? No. But public pressure sometimes works where law fails." Maya returned to her grandmother's journal, poring over the songs and stories, trying to absorb in hours what should have been learned over years. One particular song caught her attention. Notes indicated it was meant for "When the Moon Horse Stands Between Worlds." The melody seemed familiar, echoing elements of the lullabies her mother had taught her. Joseph returned, his expression a mixture of hope and concern. "The tribal council is sending representatives to the auction. They're contacting other nations as well. This has become bigger than just one horse." "Will they be able to stop the auction?" Maya asked. "No, but their presence changes the nature of the event. This becomes a matter of cultural significance, not just a livestock sale." Throughout the evening, Maya practiced the songs from her grandmother's journal, her fingers finding the chords on her father's old guitar, her voice gaining confidence as she connected with her heritage in a way she never had before. The Cherokee words felt strange on her tongue at first, but gradually became more natural as she repeated them. "I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing everything correctly," she admitted. "The intention matters more than perfect pronunciation," Joseph assured her. "The horse will understand." Frank returned from a supply run with unexpected news. Journalists are sniffing around. That video's created more interest than Harrington anticipated. There's talk of a protest at the auction tomorrow. Maya looked up from the journal. A protest? Animal rights groups, some local tribal members, words spreading fast. For the first time, a flicker of real hope kindled in Maya's chest. So people actually care what happens to Thunder Spirit? "People love a good story," Frank said pragmatically. "Horse rescued by unlikely heroine, corrupt businessman tries to kill it out of spite. It writes itself." As midnight approached, they formulated their plan for the auction. Maya would attend openly, making her case and her bid, however inadequate it might be. Joseph would coordinate with the tribal representatives, focusing on the cultural and spiritual significance of Thunder Spirit's markings. Frank would connect with fellow veterans who had benefited from equine therapy, highlighting the potential healing value of the horse. "It's a long shot," Frank cautioned. "Harrington has money, influence, and the law technically on his side." "Sometimes the truth has its own power," Joseph replied, echoing the words he'd spoken to Maya days earlier. In the early hours of the morning, as Frank and Joseph finally left to get a few hours rest before the auction, Maya sat alone with her grandmother's journal and her father's guitar. She opened to a page containing a song described as "the calling of broken hearts," meant to be sung when spirits needed guidance. Her fingers found the melody, haunting and ancient, as she practiced one last time. Outside her window, the stars hung brilliant in the Montana sky, and the crescent moon, the same shape as Thunder Spirit's marking, gleamed like a silver promise. Sleep eventually claimed her, the journal still open on her lap, the guitar leaning against her knee. In her dreams, Emma Clearwater appeared, not as the elderly woman Maya remembered, but as a young woman standing beside a magnificent horse bearing the crescent moon mark. "The circle completes tomorrow, Pequeña," Dream Emma said, her voice a blend of Cherokee cadence and Spanish endearment. When the moon, the horse, and the guardian align, you must sing the song of the broken heart. Not with your voice, but with your soul. Maya woke with a start just before dawn, the dream vivid in her mind. As she moved to close her grandmother's journal, something fell from between its pages. A small leather pouch on a cord, intricately beaded with a crescent moon design. Maya was certain it hadn't been there the night before. Yet here it was, resting atop the journal as if placed there deliberately. She lifted the pouch, feeling its surprising weight and hearing a faint rattling inside. Without knowing why, she slipped the cord over her head, tucking the pouch beneath her shirt where it rested warm against her skin. Whatever lay ahead at the auction, she would not face it alone. She carried her grandmother's wisdom, her father's music, her mother's songs, and perhaps something more that she couldn't yet name. Maya clutched the leather pouch against her chest as dawn broke over the eastern hills, casting long shadows across the dirt road leading to Jefferson County Livestock Auction. The old building loomed ahead, its weathered boards and metal roof standing stark against the morning sky. Already, the gravel parking lot was filling with trucks and trailers, ranchers, meat buyers, and curiosity seekers drawn by the viral story of the untamable Mustang and the Mexican stable girl who somehow connected with him. "Remember the plan," Frank murmured as he pulled his truck alongside several others. "Stay calm, no matter what Harrington says or does." Maya nodded, her throat too tight for words. The weight of what lay ahead pressed upon her, not just the near-impossible task of saving Thunder Spirit, but the sudden responsibility of a heritage she'd only just discovered. The leather pouch containing her grandmother's amulet felt warm against her skin, almost alive with purpose. Joseph waited for them near the entrance, standing tall in traditional Lakota clothing, a deliberate choice that marked this as more than a routine livestock sale. Beside him stood 3 tribal elders Maya didn't recognize, their weathered faces solemn under the morning light. "The representatives from the Crow and Northern Cheyenne nations have arrived," Joseph informed them quietly, "and more are coming. Word has spread quickly." Inside, the auction hall buzzed with unusual energy. Typically, weekday livestock auctions in Jefferson County were sparsely attended affairs, mostly meat buyers and local ranchers conducting routine business. Today, the wooden bleachers surrounding the central showing pen were filling with a diverse crowd. Ranchers in their usual attire of worn jeans and dusty boots, journalists with cameras and notepads, curious locals drawn by the controversy, and, most strikingly, a growing contingent of indigenous people in both contemporary and traditional dress. Maya's eyes scanned the crowd, landing on Clayton Harrington seated in the front row. The rancher had positioned himself strategically between Judge Samuel Whitney and Sheriff Tom Blackwood, a clear statement of his influence and intentions. His face was set in lines of grim determination, occasionally breaking into forced smiles as he acknowledged business associates. "He's brought reinforcements," Frank observed quietly. "Every wealthy rancher in the county is here." "And look who else," Joseph added, nodding toward the side entrance where Derek Harrington slipped in, keeping to the shadows at the back of the room. The teenager caught Maya's eye briefly, his expression a mixture of apology and determination. Maya registered all this distantly, her focus drawn inexorably to the holding pens behind the auction floor. Though she couldn't see Thunder Spirit yet, she could sense his presence, his fear and confusion palpable even through walls and distance. What was he experiencing now, this sensitive creature who had only just begun to trust again? The auction began with routine livestock, several lots of cattle, a few ordinary working horses. The proceedings had a practiced rhythm, the auctioneer's rapid-fire delivery punctuated by subtle nods and raised fingers from buyers. Maya clutched her bidding paddle, number 73, its flimsy paper suddenly the most important object in her world. "Lot 157 coming up," the auctioneer announced finally. "Special case, Mustang Stallion, classified as dangerous, for slaughter only." A murmur ran through the crowd as two handlers cautiously led Thunder Spirit into the central pen. The Mustang's coat, which had begun to regain its luster under Maya's care, now appeared dull with stress. His powerful body trembled, eyes rolling wildly as he searched the unfamiliar surroundings. When the handlers released him into the pen, he immediately retreated to the farthest corner, head high, nostrils flaring as he scented the air filled with strangers. "As you can see, folks, this is a problematic animal," the auctioneer continued. "History of aggression toward handlers. 3 professionals injured. Current owner is selling for slaughter purposes only. Opening bid, $500. The auction hall fell uncomfortably silent. Even experienced slaughterhouse buyers seemed hesitant to bid on an animal so obviously distressed and potentially dangerous to transport. Maya's heart pounded against her ribs as she stood, her legs carrying her forward before her mind fully registered the movement. Thunder Spirit's head swung toward her immediately, his ears pricking forward in unmistakable recognition. The transformation was instant and dramatic. His trembling ceased, his breathing slowed, and his posture shifted from defensive terror to alert attention. Every eye in the hall tracked this remarkable change, including Clayton Harrington's, whose face darkened with anger. Maya stepped directly in front of the pen, holding Thunder Spirit's gaze. She lifted her bidding paddle, her voice clear despite her fear. "I have $200, and I offer my life to care for him." The auctioneer paused, clearly thrown by this unexpected development. Scattered laughter rippled through the front rows where the wealthy ranchers sat, the sound cruel and dismissive. "Miss, this isn't a charity auction," the auctioneer said, recovering his professional tone though discomfort showed in his eyes. "And this animal is designated for slaughter only given its dangerous history. The minimum bid is $500. "That horse recognizes her," someone whispered loudly enough to be heard throughout the hall. "It's the girl from the video," another voice added. Clayton Harrington rose to his feet. "This is ridiculous. Continue with legitimate bids only, please." The auctioneer nodded, returning to his script. $500? Do I hear 500 for lot 157? The hall remained silent. Thunder Spirit had not taken his eyes from Maya, his entire body oriented toward her like a compass finding north. $450 then. Do I hear 450? More silence. The tension in the room thickened as the standoff continued. 400? Folks, this is still prime horse meat at 400. Suddenly, Joseph Running Bear stepped forward, moving with dignity to stand beside Maya. The elderly Lakota man dropped to his knees in a fluid motion that belied his age, his hands raised toward the ceiling. "Stop!" His voice carried authority that silenced even the auctioneer. "This proceeding must halt immediately." All eyes turned to the kneeling elder whose presence suddenly seemed to fill the entire hall. This young woman is Maya Rodriguez, granddaughter of Emma Clearwater, the last recognized guardian of the spirit horses from the Wind River people. Joseph's voice took on the cadence of formal declaration. "This Mustang bears the sacred mark of the crescent moon, exactly as foretold in the ancient prophecies of multiple nations represented here today." Murmurs spread through the indigenous section of the audience, several elders leaning forward with new interest. To separate these two would violate spiritual laws older than this nation, Joseph continued. The mark of the moon horse is recognized by the Lakota, the Cherokee, the Blackfoot, and many others as a sacred sign. This is not merely a horse auction, it is an intersection of worlds. Clayton Harrington's face flushed with anger as he stepped into the central area. "This is absurd. These are superstitious beliefs with no legal standing. Sheriff, remove these disruptors." Sheriff Blackwood shifted uncomfortably, clearly reluctant to intervene with so many witnesses present, including several journalists frantically taking notes. "Mr. Harrington," the sheriff began cautiously, "perhaps we should—" "Perhaps nothing," Harrington snapped. "This is my property being auctioned according to county regulations. Native mumbo-jumbo doesn't override property law." Frank Morris moved forward then, his military bearing evident in his straight posture and measured steps. To Maya's surprise, 5 other men rose from different sections of the bleachers to join him, all wearing caps or jackets identifying them as veterans. This horse has PTSD, Frank stated firmly, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had seen combat. Just like many of us here. And this woman is the only one who's managed to reach him. That's not superstition, sir. It's healing. One of the other veterans nodded. I've been through the VA's equine therapy program. Saved my life when nothing else worked. What's happening here is real. The auction hall had transformed from a livestock sale to something entirely different, a collision of worldviews, with Thunder Spirit and Maya at the center. The Mustang remained focused solely on Maya despite the commotion, his previous panic replaced by an almost preternatural calm in her presence. Movement near the back caught Maya's attention as Derek Harrington walked deliberately down the central aisle to stand beside her, ignoring his father's furious glare. "Dad?" Derek said, his voice breaking slightly before finding strength. "You always taught me that a good businessman recognizes value when he sees it. The value of this horse isn't in the money we can make from him, but in what he represents. This connection is real. I've seen it with my own eyes." Clayton Harrington stood speechless, apparently unable to process his son's public betrayal. The auctioneer looked helplessly between Harrington and the growing group surrounding Maya, clearly out of his depth. What happened next would later be described by witnesses as spontaneous, though it seemed to Maya to unfold with the inevitability of a river finding its course to the sea. One by one, local residents began to raise their bidding paddles, not to make offers, but in silent solidarity. A farmer Maya had never spoken to, a waitress from the diner in Liberty Creek, parents with children, veterans, ranch hands who had worked alongside her without ever really seeing her. Thunder Spirit moved closer to the pen rails, stretching his neck toward Maya. Without thinking, she reached through the bars, her hand hovering in the space between them. The Mustang pressed his muzzle against her palm in a gesture so gentle, so trusting, that audible gasps rose from the crowd. The standoff might have continued indefinitely, if not for the commanding voice that suddenly cut through the tension. "I believe I can offer a solution." All heads turned toward the back of the auction hall where a tall, distinguished man in his 60s stood. Maya didn't recognize him, but the ripple of whispers that spread through the crowd suggested many others did. "Jackson Montgomery," Frank whispered to Maya. "Famous horse trainer from Kentucky. What the hell is he doing here?" Montgomery walked unhurriedly to the center of the hall, his bearing projecting both confidence and calm authority. He nodded respectfully to Joseph and the tribal elders before addressing Harrington directly. "I offer $50,000 for the horse," he announced, causing a collective intake of breath throughout the hall, but with a condition that this animal remain with Maya Rodriguez and that she receive a full scholarship to my equestrian academy, where she can refine her extraordinary gift. Harrington's expression shifted instantly, the businessman in him recognizing an unexpected opportunity for profit. $60,000 and the horse is yours, no conditions." Montgomery smiled politely. "Mr. Harrington, you misunderstand. I'm not just buying a horse. I'm investing in the future of therapeutic horsemanship in America. This young woman possesses a gift that cannot be taught." As if to punctuate Montgomery's statement, Thunder Spirit made a decision that seemed to defy equine nature. The Mustang, who had injured 3 professional trainers and been deemed too dangerous to approach, walked deliberately to the edge of the pen closest to Maya and lowered his head, gently touching her shoulder through the rails. The image was so powerful, so undeniably moving, that even the most skeptical observers in the hall fell silent. Confronted with both overwhelming public sentiment and a financial offer that more than covered his investment, Harrington finally yielded, though with obvious disdain. "Fine, take the damn horse, but don't say I didn't warn you when it kills someone." "Fine, take the damn horse, but don't say I didn't warn you when it kills someone." The words hung in the air like poison, but Maya barely registered them. Her entire being was focused on Thunder Spirit, his dark eyes fixed on hers through the metal rails of the auction pen. The Mustang's breath came in warm puffs against her outstretched hand, his earlier panic entirely absent in her presence. Jackson Montgomery stepped forward, extending his hand to Harrington. "I'll have my attorney draw up the paperwork immediately. The funds will be transferred by end of business today." Harrington's handshake was perfunctory, his eyes cold with barely contained fury. "Just get that beast off my property." He turned to Maya, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "You got lucky today, girl. Remember that." The auction hall buzzed with excited conversations as people began to disperse. Some approached Maya with congratulations. Others clustered around Montgomery, eager to speak with the renowned trainer. Through it all, Thunder Spirit remained focused solely on Maya, as if the crowd and commotion meant nothing compared to her presence. Joseph approached with the tribal elders, their faces solemn but eyes bright with approval. "The circle begins to complete itself," he said quietly. "But remember, young one, this is just the beginning of your journey together." Derek Harrington pushed through the crowd, ignoring his father's sharp command to return to the car. "Maya, I'm so sorry about posting that video without asking. I never thought it all worked out in the end," she interrupted, surprising herself with the forgiveness in her voice. "If you hadn't posted it, none of this would have happened." The teenager's face brightened slightly. "What will you do now? Where will you keep him?" The question landed like a stone in Maya's stomach. In the intensity of trying to save Thunder Spirit, she hadn't thought beyond this moment. Her tiny cabin had no paddock, no stable, no facilities whatsoever for housing a horse, let alone one with Thunder Spirit's special needs. Jackson Montgomery seemed to read her thoughts. "The first order of business is transportation," he said, joining their circle. "I have a specially designed trailer waiting outside. It's equipped with padding and extra ventilation, designed for traumatized horses." He extended his hand to Maya. "Jackson Montgomery, I've been following your story since that video went viral. What you've accomplished with this horse in just weeks is extraordinary." Maya shook his hand, feeling distinctly out of place in her worn jeans and faded flannel shirt. "I didn't do anything special. I just listened to him." "That's precisely what makes it special," Montgomery replied, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Most people never learn to listen to horses. They're too busy trying to make horses listen to them." Frank joined them, nodding respectfully to Montgomery. "Sir, we have a transportation problem solved, but not a destination. Maya's place isn't set up for horses. My academy in Kentucky would welcome both of them immediately," Montgomery offered. Maya shook her head firmly. "I can't take him away from here. Not yet. He's just starting to feel safe. A cross-country trip would traumatize him all over again." Montgomery studied her face, then nodded. "You're right, of course. The horse's needs must come first." He considered for a moment. "What about your property? How much land do you have?" "About 5 acres, Maya replied. "It was my grandmother's place, but there's no fencing, no shelter except my cabin." Joseph stepped forward. "The land is good. Natural spring water, shelter from the north winds. It could be made suitable." "Then that's our next step," Montgomery decided. "Let's get Thunder Spirit safely to your property, and I'll arrange for contractors to begin work on proper facilities immediately." The process of loading Thunder Spirit into Montgomery's specialized trailer proved the wisdom of Maya's gentle approach. While the handler stood back nervously, Maya simply walked into the auction pen, speaking softly in a mixture of Spanish and Cherokee. The massive black Mustang followed her willingly, pausing only briefly at the trailer entrance before stepping inside with surprising calm. "I've never seen anything like it," one of Montgomery's assistants whispered. "That horse put 3 men in the hospital, and she leads him like a lamb." The drive to Maya's cabin took 40 minutes, with Frank's truck leading the way, followed by Montgomery's vehicle towing the horse trailer, and a procession of supporters behind. Joseph and the tribal elders, several veterans from the auction, and even Derek Harrington in his own vehicle, having openly defied his father's orders. As they turned onto the dirt road leading to her modest property, Maya felt a strange mixture of pride and embarrassment. The small wooden cabin with its sagging porch and patched roof looked even more dilapidated when viewed through the eyes of someone like Montgomery, whose Kentucky Academy was renowned for its state-of-the-art facilities. "It's not much," she said apologetically as they parked in the bare dirt yard. Montgomery surveyed the property with a professional eye. "Actually, it's perfect. Natural boundaries on 3 sides, good sight lines, excellent drainage. We just need to add the infrastructure. While Montgomery made calls to contractors, Maya prepared to unload Thunder Spirit. The Mustang nickered softly when she appeared at the trailer door, his ears forward with interest rather than pinned back in fear. "We're home," she told him, the word feeling strange on her tongue. Since her parents' death, the cabin had been shelter, but never truly home. "It's not fancy, but it's ours." The unloading went smoothly, Thunder Spirit stepping confidently down the ramp with Maya at his shoulder. Once on solid ground, the Mustang stood motionless, taking in his new surroundings, the open space around the cabin, the tree line in the distance, the mountains framing the horizon. His nostrils flared as he processed the unfamiliar scents. "He needs a temporary enclosure until proper fencing can be installed," Montgomery observed. "Something secure but not claustrophobic." "I think I can help with that," came a new voice. Maya turned to see a convoy of trucks and cars approaching down her dirt driveway. Ranch hands from neighboring properties, veterans from Frank's support group, members of Joseph's community, all arriving with tools and materials. "Word travels fast in small towns," Frank explained with a rare smile, "especially when it involves sticking it to Clayton Harrington." Within hours, Maya's barren yard had transformed into a hub of activity. Men and women worked together setting up temporary fencing, creating a generous paddock that extended from the side of the cabin into the natural meadow beyond. Others assembled a 3-sided shelter using materials they'd brought in their trucks. Joseph supervised the placement of the shelter, insisting it face east. "For the morning sun," he explained. "It matters to a horse like this one." Through it all, Thunder Spirit remained remarkably calm, staying close to Maya as the strangers worked around them. Occasionally, he would startle at an unexpected sound. A hammer dropped, a truck door slammed, but each time, he recovered more quickly, drawing confidence from Maya's steady presence. By late afternoon, Montgomery pulled Maya aside. "I need to return to Kentucky tomorrow, but I'd like to leave you with this." He handed her an envelope. Inside was a check for $5,000 and documents outlining a full scholarship to his academy. "The scholarship begins whenever you're ready, whether that's next month or next year. The money is for immediate expenses. My contractors will arrive tomorrow to begin work on proper facilities." Maya stared at the check, overwhelmed. "I can't accept." "You can and you will," Montgomery interrupted firmly. "What you have is a gift that needs nurturing. I'm not being charitable. I'm investing in the future of horsemanship." As evening approached, the impromptu work party evolved into something resembling a celebration. Someone brought a portable grill, another contributed food, and soon the scent of barbecue filled the air. Children who had come with their parents played at a safe distance, watching the famous Miracle Horse with wide eyes. Maya led Thunder Spirit to his new paddock, removing the light halter she'd used during the day. The Mustang explored his space with cautious interest, testing the fence line, investigating the shelter, always circling back to where Maya stood watching. "He's mapping his territory," Joseph observed, coming to stand beside her, "learning what's safe." "Will he be okay out here alone?" Maya worried. "Horses are herd animals. They need companionship." Joseph smiled. "He's not alone. He has you. And soon enough, others will come." As darkness fell, most of the volunteers departed, leaving promises to return the next day. Thunder Spirit settled in his shelter, visible through the opening as he lay down on the fresh straw bedding, a sign of extraordinary trust given his history. Maya sat on her porch steps, watching the stars emerge above the mountains, hardly able to process the day's events. 24 hours ago, she had been despairing, certain she would lose Thunder Spirit forever. Now he dozed peacefully just yards away, and her life had changed in ways she couldn't yet fully comprehend. Frank joined her on the steps, offering a cup of coffee. Quite a day. "I still can't believe it happened," Maya admitted. $50,000 for a horse everyone called worthless. "He wasn't paying for the horse," Frank said. "He was paying for what you and that horse represent together." They sat in comfortable silence until Frank spoke again. You know Harrington won't let this go easily. Men like him don't accept defeat gracefully. What can he do? The sale was legal, witnessed by half the county. Just be careful, Frank advised. That's all I'm saying. Later that night, with the property finally quiet and most helpers gone, Maya brought her guitar to the paddock fence. Thunder Spirit approached immediately, now recognizing the instrument and what it signaled. She played softly, the melodies from her grandmother's journal flowing from memory through her fingers. Under the vast Montana sky, horse and woman shared a moment of perfect understanding. Two beings who had found in each other something essential that the world had previously denied them both. As the final notes faded, Thunder Spirit lowered his head over the fence to rest against Maya's shoulder, a gesture of absolute trust that brought tears to her eyes. "We're going to be okay," she whispered, believing it for the first time. In the distance, headlights appeared briefly on the main road before disappearing, a car slowing, then continuing on. Maya thought nothing of it until the next morning, when she woke to find her mailbox smashed and a crude note nailed to her front door. "Enjoy your victory while it lasts." Maya stared at the crude note nailed to her door, her fingers trembling slightly as she pulled it free. The splinters of her smashed mailbox lay scattered across the dirt driveway like broken bones. The morning sun, usually a comfort, now exposed her vulnerability. A woman alone on 5 acres with nothing but determination and a newly rescued horse. Enjoy your victory while it lasts. The threat hung in the air, as tangible as the morning mist rising from the meadow. She crumpled the paper in her fist, turning to check on Thunder Spirit. The Mustang stood alert at the fence line, ears pricked forward, dark eyes tracking her movements with an intensity that suggested he sensed her distress. "It's okay," she called softly, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her. "Just some coward in the night." She had barely finished her morning coffee when the rumble of vehicles approaching sent Thunder Spirit retreating to the far corner of his temporary paddock, head high, nostrils flaring. Maya stepped onto her porch, half expecting Clayton Harrington's expensive SUV. Instead, a convoy of trucks and cars appeared, Frank's weathered pickup in the lead, followed by Joseph's ancient blue Chevy, and at least a dozen other vehicles she didn't recognize. "Brought reinforcements," Frank called as he stepped out, gesturing to the men and women unloading tools from their trucks. "Figured we should get proper fencing up sooner rather than later." "What is all this?" Maya asked, descending the porch steps. "Community," Joseph replied simply, standing beside Frank. "Word travels fast when someone stands up to a man like Harrington." From the vehicles emerged an unlikely assortment of allies, weathered ranch hands from neighboring properties, several veterans from Frank's support group wearing faded military caps, women from Joseph's reservation carrying coolers of food, and even a few teenagers Maya recognized from the local high school. "My contracting crew won't arrive until tomorrow," Jackson Montgomery said, emerging from a sleek rental car. "But it seems the local workforce has volunteered their services." A tall man with sun-leathered skin approached Maya, extending a calloused hand. "Jim Blackhawk, carpenter. My daughter showed me that video of you and the horse. Reminded me why I started working with animals in the first place, before it all became about profit." Throughout the morning, Maya's barren property transformed. Teams organized naturally, some clearing brush for fence lines, others unloading lumber and fencing materials, women setting up an outdoor kitchen near the cabin. Thunder Spirit observed from his temporary enclosure, his initial alarm gradually giving way to cautious curiosity. "He's processing," Joseph noted, pausing beside Maya as she watched the Mustang. "Every new voice, every new smell, he's cataloging whether they represent danger. Will all this activity set back his progress?" she worried. Joseph shook his head. "Actually, it's good for him to see humans working together peacefully. His previous experiences taught him that humans bring pain. Now he's seeing a different reality." By midday, the property buzzed with productive energy. The framework for a modest but sturdy 3-stall barn had begun to take shape, following the plans Montgomery had sketched. Fence posts marked the boundary of what would become a spacious paddock, extending from the barn into the natural meadow. Maya worked alongside everyone else, driving fence posts, carrying lumber, learning as she went. During a brief lunch break, she noticed Derek Harrington's car pulling up, the teenager looking nervously over his shoulder as he approached. "Dad doesn't know I'm here," he admitted, accepting the sandwich Maya offered. "He's on the warpath, spent all night on the phone with his lawyers, trying to find loopholes in the sale." "Will he find any?" Maya asked, her stomach tightening. Derek shook his head. "Montgomery's attorneys are too good. The sale is solid." He hesitated. "But be careful. Dad doesn't lose gracefully." The smashed mailbox suddenly made more sense. Throughout the afternoon, Maya alternated between helping with construction and spending time with Thunder Spirit. The Mustang grew increasingly restless as the day progressed, the constant activity and noise pushing the boundaries of his newfound trust. "He needs a break," Maya decided, approaching Joseph. "Too much is happening too fast." The elder nodded. "Take him to the meadow beyond the tree line. There's a natural boundary of rocks there. He won't wander far from you." With gentle coaxing and a lead rope loosely held, Maya guided Thunder Spirit away from the construction zone. The Mustang followed her tentatively at first, then with growing confidence as they left the noise behind. In the quiet meadow, his entire demeanor changed, head lowering, breathing deepening, muscles visibly relaxing. Maya removed the lead rope, giving him freedom to explore. She sat cross-legged in the tall grass, simply observing as Thunder Spirit cautiously moved away, stopping every few steps to look back at her, as if confirming she remained constant. "This is who you really are," she said softly, watching his natural grace return as anxiety receded. "Not the monster they tried to make you." After nearly an hour, Thunder Spirit approached her of his own accord, lowering his massive head to her level. His breath came warm against her cheek, a gesture of trust that still seemed miraculous given his history. Maya remained perfectly still, allowing him to set the parameters of their contact. When they returned to the property, the transformation was even more dramatic. The framework of the barn stood complete, the roof partially finished. A water trough had been installed with piping connecting to the natural spring Joseph had identified. "My brother's a plumber," one of the veterans explained, wiping sweat from his brow. "Got the materials donated from Henderson's Supply." As sunset approached, Montgomery gathered everyone near the half-finished barn. "What you've accomplished today would have taken my professional crew a week," he acknowledged. "This is the spirit of community I'll tell my students about." Someone had brought a portable grill, and soon the scent of barbecue filled the air. Lawn chairs appeared as if by magic, creating an impromptu gathering space. Children who had come with their parents played at a safe distance, watching Thunder Spirit with wide-eyed fascination. "Can we pet him?" a young girl asked Maya, her expression hopeful. "Not yet, sweetheart," Maya explained gently. "He's still learning to trust, but you can talk to him from here, and he'll listen." As night fell, lanterns illuminated the continuing work. The volunteers seemed determined to complete as much as possible before departing. Maya moved among them, overwhelmed by their generosity, learning names and stories. The Vietnam veteran who found peace only when working with his hands. The single mother who cleaned houses at Harrington Ranch and had witnessed Maya's firing. The retired school teacher who had taught Maya's mother decades earlier. "Your mother had the same gift with animals," the elderly teacher told her. "She could calm the wildest barn cat with just her presence." Near midnight, with the barn roof completed and the main paddock fence securely installed, the volunteers finally began to depart. Promises to return the next day were exchanged, along with contact information and offers of ongoing help. Montgomery approached Maya as the last trucks pulled away. "You've made quite an impression on this community," he observed. "That's almost as remarkable as your connection with Thunder Spirit." "I never thought anyone noticed me before," she admitted. "I was just the Mexican girl who cleaned stables." "People notice more than you think," Montgomery replied. "They just needed a reason to show it." He handed her a folder. "These are the plans for completing the facilities, plus information about the scholarship. Take your time reviewing them." Left alone with Thunder Spirit, Maya sat on her porch steps, exhausted but too wired to sleep. The Mustang stood at the nearest fence, watching her with what seemed like concerned attention. "It's been quite a day," she told him, smiling despite her fatigue. "Are you as overwhelmed as I am?" In response, Thunder Spirit snorted softly, pawing once at the ground, a gesture she was beginning to recognize as his way of seeking reassurance. Maya retrieved her guitar from the cabin and returned to the fence. The first notes of her grandmother's lullaby floated through the night air, creating a bubble of calm after the day's chaos. Thunder Spirit's eyes half closed as the familiar melody washed over him, his breathing synchronizing with the rhythm of her playing. "We're building something here," she whispered between verses. "Something neither of us thought we'd have again. A home." The next morning, Maya woke to the sound of vehicles arriving once more. Through her window, she saw Montgomery's professional contractors unloading specialized equipment, mixing easily with the returning local volunteers. The barn, skeletal yesterday, now stood nearly complete with proper stalls taking shape inside. She dressed quickly and stepped outside, immediately checking on Thunder Spirit. The Mustang greeted her with a soft nicker, moving to the fence with none of yesterday's hesitation. "You're adapting faster than I expected," she told him, offering an apple from her pocket. Joseph appeared at her side, his expression thoughtful as he observed the Mustang. "He trusts you to make good decisions for him. That's rare. Usually horses this traumatized trust no one." Throughout the day, the property continued its transformation. The contractors brought materials for specialized features, rubber flooring for the stalls, proper drainage systems, a small tack room. The local volunteers focused on extending the fencing to create a larger turnout area where Thunder Spirit could run freely. Derek returned, this time with architectural drawings for a proper feed storage shed. "I'm taking drafting classes," he explained somewhat shyly. "Thought this might be useful." By mid-afternoon, a reporter and photographer from the regional newspaper arrived, asking to document the community effort. "The story's gone national," the reporter explained. "People are fascinated by the Mustang nobody could tame and the community that rallied around him." Maya reluctantly agreed to a brief interview, insisting that Thunder Spirit not be disturbed or photographed without her present. "He's not a circus attraction," she said firmly. "He's a being recovering from severe trauma." As sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Maya stood beside Joseph, surveying what had been accomplished in just 2 days. The dilapidated property had transformed into a functional, thoughtfully designed equine sanctuary. The 3-stall barn stood completed, painted a warm red with white trim. Secure paddocks extended from both sides, with a larger pasture area beyond. "It's like a miracle," she breathed, hardly recognizing her own land. Joseph smiled, the fading light deepening the weathered lines of his face. "The spirits me told this is just the beginning," he said, gesturing toward the horizon. "Other, impossible horses will start finding their way to your door, each one bringing a broken person who needs healing." He paused, his expression growing distant. "The first one will arrive at dawn tomorrow." Joseph's prediction proved eerily accurate. As the first light of dawn painted the eastern sky in pale watercolors, Maya was awakened by the sound of tires crunching on the gravel driveway. She had fallen asleep in the rocking chair on her porch, wrapped in a blanket Joseph had given her, watching over Thunder Spirit as he settled into his new surroundings. Blinking sleep from her eyes, Maya saw Derek Harrington's truck pulling a small horse trailer. The teenager's face was tense as he parked and climbed out, glancing nervously back toward the main road as if expecting pursuit. "Derek? What's going on?" Maya called, pulling the blanket around her shoulders against the morning chill. "I need your help," he replied, his voice strained. "My uncle's place in Wyoming, I found this little guy hidden in a back paddock. They were starving him." Maya approached the trailer cautiously. Through the slats, she could see a small chestnut colt, no more than a year old, his ribs prominent beneath a dull coat marked with what appeared to be whip scars. The young horse's eyes held the vacant stare Maya had come to recognize as deep trauma. "Uncle Greg breeds quarter horses for the rodeo circuit," Derek explained as he unlocked the trailer. This one was too small, too spirited for his program. They were just waiting for him to die, I think. Thunder Spirit had awakened with the commotion, standing alert at the fence line, ears pricked forward with intense interest. As Derek slowly opened the trailer door, the colt refused to move, pressing himself against the far wall, trembling visibly. "He won't come out," Derek said, frustration edging his voice. "Took me 2 hours to get him in there last night." Maya studied the situation, remembering Joseph's teachings. "He's trapped in fear. We need to give him a choice, not force another decision on him." Instead of approaching the trailer, Maya walked to Thunder Spirit's paddock. The Mustang greeted her with a soft nicker, lowering his head to her shoulder, a greeting that had become their morning ritual. Maya whispered to him, then opened the gate and attached a light lead rope to his halter. "What are you doing?" Derek asked as she led Thunder Spirit toward the trailer. "Introducing him to someone who understands," Maya replied. Thunder Spirit's reaction to the frightened colt was remarkable. The massive black Mustang approached the trailer with careful, measured steps, stopping several yards away. He lowered his head, nickering softly, a sound Maya had never heard from him before, gentle and reassuring. The colt's ears flicked forward, his trembling momentarily stilled. Thunder Spirit nickered again, pawing once at the ground. After several tense minutes, the colt took a hesitant step toward the trailer opening, then another, his focus entirely on the larger horse. "He's speaking to him," Maya whispered to Derek, "in a language we can't fully understand." When the colt finally emerged, stumbling slightly on weak legs, Thunder Spirit remained perfectly still, allowing the youngster to approach at his own pace. Their nostrils touched in greeting, the traditional introduction between horses, before Thunder Spirit turned and began walking slowly toward his paddock, pausing occasionally to ensure the colt was following. "I've never seen anything like that," Derek breathed, watching as the colt cautiously followed Thunder Spirit into the paddock. "It's like he knew exactly what to do." "Because he's been where that colt is now," Maya replied. "Fear recognizes fear, but courage can recognize courage too." Over the next several hours, Thunder Spirit became a surprising mentor to the frightened colt. He positioned himself between the younger horse and any perceived threats, showed him where to find water, and demonstrated through example that the humans moving around the property weren't to be feared. Joseph arrived mid-morning, observing the interaction with knowing eyes. "The healer becomes the teacher," he remarked. "This is how it should be." Maya nodded, watching as Thunder Spirit gently guided the colt away when a delivery truck arrived with more building supplies. "He's protecting him, showing him the ropes. I never expected this." "Horses are deeply social beings," Joseph explained. "In the wild, older horses teach the young ones what is safe and what is dangerous. Thunder Spirit is remembering his role before humans broke the natural order." Montgomery's contractors continued their work, finishing the specialized features of what was rapidly becoming a proper equine sanctuary. A local veterinarian who had seen the newspaper coverage and volunteered his services arrived to examine the colt. "Severe malnutrition, possible internal parasites, and these wounds need treatment," the vet explained after a careful examination. "But I've seen worse cases recover fully. He's young, that's in his favor." As Maya thanked the veterinarian for his help, she noticed Derek standing awkwardly to the side, clearly troubled. "My father's going to find out I took the colt," he admitted when she approached. "Uncle Greg called him this morning, furious. Says I stole valuable property." "Valuable?" Maya couldn't keep the edge from her voice. "They were letting him starve to death." Derek nodded miserably. "Dad threatened to cut me off completely if I keep interfering in family business. But I can't go back to pretending I don't see what's happening. Not after everything with Thunder Spirit." The courage in the teenager's stance, shoulders straight despite the fear in his eyes, reminded Maya of Thunder Spirit's initial defiance. Both had been born into systems that demanded their submission, yet both found ways to resist. "You're welcome here any time," she told him, "no matter what your father decides." By afternoon, news of the rescued colt had spread through the local network of volunteers. Frank arrived with several other veterans, bringing additional supplies for the growing sanctuary. "Thought you might need another stall set up," he said, nodding toward the colt who was cautiously accepting a handful of specialized feed from Maya. Word travels fast around here. The community's response continued to astonish Maya. A retired nurse arrived with homemade salves for the colt's wounds. A local feed store owner delivered a month's supply of high-quality grain, refusing payment. 2 teenage girls from the high school asked if they could volunteer after classes, having seen Derek's social media posts about the sanctuary. As the day progressed, Maya divided her attention between the frightened colt and Thunder Spirit, marveling at how the once savage Mustang had transformed into a patient guardian. When the colt startled at the sound of power tools, Thunder Spirit would position himself between the noise and the younger horse, his solid presence offering reassurance that no harm would come. "He's essentially becoming a therapy horse himself," observed the veterinarian as he prepared to leave. "That's extraordinary given his history." By sunset, the colt had begun to show small signs of improvement, accepting food directly from Maya's hand, allowing brief touches along his neck, watching the humans with wariness, but no longer blind panic. Throughout it all, Thunder Spirit remained a steady presence, his own confidence seemingly bolstered by his new role. As evening fell, Frank pulled Maya aside, his expression serious. "There's something you should know. Harrington's been asking questions about your grandmother's property deed." "What kind of questions?" Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn air. "The kind that suggest he's looking for legal loopholes. The property sits on what was once tribal land before being parceled out in the 1950s. There could be complications with the title transfer after your grandmother passed." Maya's stomach tightened. "He can't take my land, can he?" "Probably not," Frank reassured her. "But he has expensive lawyers and a grudge. Just be prepared." Later that night, after most visitors had departed, Maya sat cross-legged in Thunder Spirit's paddock, the Mustang grazing peacefully nearby while the colt dozed in the shelter. The day's events swirled in her mind. The unexpected arrival of another traumatized horse, the community's overwhelming support, the looming threat from Harrington. "How do you do it?" she asked Thunder Spirit quietly. "How do you find the courage to trust again after everything humans did to you?" As if sensing her distress, the Mustang raised his head, regarded her thoughtfully, then walked over to stand beside her. His solid presence offered the same comfort to her that he had provided to the colt throughout the day. In the soft glow of the barn lights, Maya noticed something she hadn't seen before. The crescent moon marking on Thunder Spirit's flank seemed more prominent, almost luminous against his dark coat. She reached up to touch the leather pouch at her neck, her grandmother's amulet warm against her skin. A vehicle approached slowly along the main road, headlights briefly illuminating the sanctuary's new sign. Clearwater Sanctuary, where broken souls heal together. The car slowed as it passed, then continued without stopping. Maya felt a prickle of unease, remembering the smashed mailbox and threatening note. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. A sleek silver SUV pulled into the driveway just as Maya finished the colt's morning treatment. To her surprise, Sarah Running Bear, Joseph's 12-year-old granddaughter, emerged from the passenger seat, followed by Joseph himself. Maya had heard about Sarah from Joseph, how the girl had stopped speaking almost entirely after witnessing her mother's death in a car accident the previous year. Therapists and counselors had made little progress breaking through her self-imposed silence. "She asked to come," Joseph explained simply as they approached. "First request she's made in months." Sarah stood slightly behind her grandfather, dark eyes serious in her small face, watching Thunder Spirit and the colt with intense focus. The Mustang, usually wary of strangers, lifted his head to study the child with unusual interest. "Would you like to meet him?" Maya asked the girl gently. Sarah nodded, a barely perceptible movement. "Thunder Spirit, this is Sarah," Maya said, using the same respectful tone she always used with the horses. "She's Joseph's granddaughter." Joseph guided Sarah to stand at a safe distance from the paddock fence. Thunder Spirit, to Maya's amazement, approached immediately, lowering his massive head to the child's level. remaining absolutely still as the girl studied him. With trembling fingers, Sarah slowly extended her hand. Thunder Spirit didn't move, his breathing steady and calm as the small hand made contact with his muzzle. "He understands," Sarah whispered, the words so quiet Maya almost missed them. "He knows how I feel inside." Joseph's sharp intake of breath confirmed what Maya had realized. These were the first words Sarah had spoken voluntarily in nearly a year. "He understands," Sarah whispered, the words so quiet Maya almost missed them. "He knows how I feel inside." Joseph's sharp intake of breath confirmed what Maya had realized. These were the first words Sarah had spoken voluntarily in nearly a year. The moment hung suspended in the crisp morning air, fragile and precious as a dewdrop. Thunder Spirit remained perfectly still, his dark eyes fixed on the small girl as if they shared a secret language. Sarah raised her other hand, touching his forelock with gentle fingers. "You were broken too," she murmured, her voice gaining strength. "But you're not afraid anymore." Maya stepped back, giving them space for this unexpected communion. Joseph stood motionless, tears gathering in the weathered corners of his eyes as his granddaughter spoke more words in these few moments than she had in 12 months of therapy sessions. "The ancient stories spoke of this," Joseph said softly to Maya, "how spirit horses could unlock voices trapped by grief." Over the next hour, Sarah sat on an overturned bucket near the fence, speaking in quiet tones to Thunder Spirit, who remained attentively nearby, occasionally nickering softly in response. The words weren't meant for human ears, but the transformation in the child was unmistakable. Her face animated, her posture straightening as if a heavy weight was gradually lifting from her small shoulders. "I haven't seen her like this since before my daughter's accident," Joseph confided as they watched from a respectful distance. "The doctor said trauma had locked her voice away, that we needed to be patient." "Thunder Spirit understands trauma better than any therapist could," Maya replied. "There's no pretense between them, just recognition." By mid-morning, the sanctuary had come alive with its now familiar rhythm of activity. Frank arrived with 2 veterans from his support group, continuing work on the expanded paddock area. The local veterinarian returned to check on the rescued colt, expressing pleased surprise at the young horse's improved demeanor. "Amazing what 24 hours of proper care and company can do," he remarked, watching how the colt now mimicked Thunder Spirit's calm response to human presence. "You've got a gift for this work, Maya." Jackson Montgomery called from Kentucky, his voice clear through the new phone he'd insisted on providing for the sanctuary. "The first installment of your scholarship funds has been transferred," he informed her, "and I've added a teaching stipend. Your methods need to be documented." "I'm not sure I'm qualified to teach anyone," Maya protested, watching as Sarah cautiously offered an apple slice to the colt under Thunder Spirit's watchful eye. "That's precisely why you should," Montgomery countered. "Your approach isn't cluttered with conventional wisdom or competitive ego. You're connecting with these animals soul to soul." After ending the call, Maya noticed a sleek SUV approaching, the type that usually heralded wealthy visitors from Bozeman or Missoula. Her stomach tightened, anticipating another confrontation with Clayton Harrington. Instead, a middle-aged couple emerged, introducing themselves as the Johnsons, owners of a therapeutic riding center in Colorado. "We saw the video," Mrs. Johnson explained, her eyes moving appreciatively over the newly constructed facilities. "And then we read about the community effort to build this sanctuary. We have a mare, beautiful Arabian, impeccable bloodlines, but she's been labeled dangerous after throwing her rider during a competition. 3 trainers have given up on her," Mr. Johnson added. "The last one recommended euthanasia. But after seeing what you did with that Mustang..." Maya listened to their story, recognizing the familiar pattern. A sensitive animal pushed beyond its limits, then punished for its natural response to fear or pain. "I can't make any promises," she told them honestly. "Every horse is different." "We understand," Mrs. Johnson replied, "but we'd rather give her one more chance here than give up on her entirely." By early afternoon, arrangements had been made for the Arabian mare to be transported to Clearwater Sanctuary the following week. The news spread quickly among the growing network of volunteers and supporters, bringing another wave of offers to help prepare additional facilities. Derek arrived after school, his expression troubled despite his attempts to appear casual. "Dad's officially cut me off," he announced, dropping his backpack on the porch. "Told me I could crawl back when I've learned respect for family business." "I'm so sorry," Maya began, but Derek shook his head. "Don't be. It feels good, actually. Like I can breathe for the first time." He glanced toward the paddock where Sarah was still communing with Thunder Spirit. "Who's the kid?" "Joseph's granddaughter. She hasn't spoken in almost a year since her mother died. Today she started talking again. To Thunder Spirit." Derek watched the interaction thoughtfully. It's like he knows who needs him. As the afternoon progressed, Maya noticed Sarah gradually including the rescued colt in her quiet conversations, her small hand tentatively stroking his scarred neck while Thunder Spirit stood nearby like a protective older brother. The young girl who had arrived silent and withdrawn now moved with growing confidence around both horses. Joseph approached as sunset painted the western sky in brilliant golds and crimsons. "We should be going soon, but I wonder if Sarah might return tomorrow. This is the most progress she's made since the accident." "Of course," Maya agreed immediately. "She's welcome anytime." Thunder Spirit clearly responds to her. As they prepared to leave, Sarah turned to Maya, her voice still soft but remarkably steady. "He told me it's safe to talk again, that the bad feelings can't hurt me if I let them out instead of keeping them inside." Maya knelt to the child's level, respecting the significance of this confidence. Thunder Spirit is very wise that way. He had to learn the same lesson. After Joseph and Sarah departed, Maya sat on her porch steps, watching as Frank and the remaining volunteers finished their day's work. The sanctuary had evolved beyond recognition in just a few days, from a dilapidated cabin with 5 acres of neglected land to a thoughtfully designed facility with proper paddocks, a sturdy barn, and the beginnings of a round pen for gentler training methods. More importantly, the spirit of the place had transformed. What had once been a lonely refuge where Maya hid from the world after her parents' death had become a gathering place for people drawn together by their recognition of something authentic and healing in her connection with Thunder Spirit. As twilight deepened into evening, Maya walked to Thunder Spirit's paddock. The Mustang greeted her with the soft nicker that had become his special welcome, trotting over from where he had been showing the colt how to dust bathe in a sandy corner of the enclosure. "You were magnificent today," she told him, opening the gate to enter his space. "Sarah needed you, and you knew exactly what to do." Thunder Spirit nudged her shoulder gently, his breath warm against her neck. In these quiet moments together, Maya could hardly believe this was the same horse that had been labeled a killer, deemed too dangerous to approach. His eyes, once wild with defensive rage, now held a depth of understanding that sometimes seemed more human than animal. She settled on the ground, leaning against the fence post as Thunder Spirit grazed nearby, keeping her in his peripheral vision as he always did now. The colt, gaining confidence by the hour, ventured closer to Maya than he had previously dared, stretching his neck to sniff her outstretched hand before retreating to Thunder Spirit's side. "You're teaching him well," Maya observed, "showing him humans can be trusted after all." As full darkness fell, Maya collected her guitar from the porch and returned to the paddock. This had become their nightly ritual, music under the stars, a private communion between woman and horse that had expanded now to include the young colt. The first notes of her grandmother's Cherokee lullaby drifted through the cool night air, and Thunder Spirit lifted his head, ears forward, eyes half closed in appreciation. Maya thought about Sarah, about how Thunder Spirit had somehow recognized the silence that grief had imposed on the child, and offered her a safe space to find her voice again. She thought about the Arabian mare who would soon arrive, bearing her own wounds and fears, and she thought about herself, how just weeks ago she had been as isolated and defensive as Thunder Spirit had been, both of them broken by circumstances beyond their control. Now, gazing up at the vast Montana sky scattered with stars, Maya felt a sense of purpose unfurling within her like a long dormant seed finally reaching towards sunlight. The leather pouch containing her grandmother's amulet rested warm against her skin, a tangible connection to a heritage she was only beginning to understand. The following morning dawned clear and cold, the first real hint of the Montana winter to come. Maya awoke early, moving through her expanded morning routine, checking on Thunder Spirit and the colt, preparing their specialized feed, examining the colt's healing wounds before turning both horses out into the larger paddock for exercise. From this vantage point, she could see her small cabin, now surrounded by well-constructed fences and modest but dignified stables. She could see the cars of volunteers already arriving for another day of work. She could see the young colt, each day more confident, trotting alongside Thunder Spirit as the Mustang showed him the boundaries of their shared territory. In the distance, an unfamiliar car appeared, moving slowly along the main road. It stopped directly in front of the sanctuary's entrance sign, idling there longer than a passing tourist would normally pause. Maya felt a flicker of unease, remembering Frank's warning about Harrington's persistent grudge. To her shock, she recognized the distinctive silver Lexus that Clayton Harrington drove. The vehicle remained stationary for several long moments before finally turning into the sanctuary's driveway, gravel crunching under its expensive tires as it approached. Harrington sat alone behind the wheel, his normally imposing figure somehow diminished in the morning light. He parked but didn't immediately exit the vehicle, his hands gripping the steering wheel as if gathering courage. Through the windshield, Maya could see he held an envelope in one hand, his expression uncharacteristically uncertain as he watched Thunder Spirit and the colt moving freely in the paddock.